Good Saturday morning, everyone. Today on Perspectives, Mobile County Sheriff Paul Burch. A veteran of more than 20 years with the Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Burch stepped into his new position roughly 7 months ago after being elected, and he brought with him years of law enforcement experience, ready to address the challenges of the office and law enforcement today. From the movement to allow permitless carry in Alabama to a federal lawsuit by female corrections officers at Metro Jail, claiming supervising officials were not taking sexual harassment complaints seriously. And recently, the deaths of 3 inmates while locked up in Metro, to the arrest of a deputy charged with forging co-workers' signatures to get possession of vehicles to sell for personal gain. Now, it's a tough job that requires dealing with more than just fighting crime. But on that front, a new task force that the Sheriff's Office is a major partner in recently got 3 dangerous criminals quickly off the street, arrested, and now in the court system after committing sexual abuses. And the Sheriff's Office is now targeting violent crime in Pritchard. Deputies have been mobilized to take the lead in removing violent offenders from the community. Our guest today on Perspectives, Mobile County Sheriff Paul Burch. We'll talk with the sheriff and hear more about the new programs that are helping the department achieve success in fighting crime. And, of course, the issues facing law enforcement today. That and more right after a quick break this morning when Perspectives continues. And welcome back this morning. Our very special guest, Sheriff Paul Burch of the Mobile County Sheriff's Office. Thanks for joining us this morning for this conversation.
Glad to be back.
You know, a lot of things going on in this 7 months. It's been a busy one for you. And when we look at some of the things just this week, you appointed a new warden and assistant. Why don't we go from that point first and talk about those 2 people?
Well, we had to reclassify the titles, so the jail administrator and deputy jail administrator. And I believe they started June 1st is when we enacted that. And Sam Houston, who was previously deputy warden, been with the Sheriff's Office for a little over 12 years. He's the administrator. And Pat Mitchell, who I've worked with most of my career.
And you were saying that you guys were in...
We went to the Mobile Academy together, and then we did undercover work together for 5 or 6 years.
Now, when you said you had to do an arranged change on the titles, why was that?
The warden and deputy warden positions were previously under the merit system. And so after discussing with other counselors and attorneys and looking at the best practices, we decided we wanted to take those positions out from under the merit system and be able to appoint those that you feel is going to have your best interest, because the jail is the biggest liability with the Sheriff's Office.
Yeah, that's
so you want to have people there that have your back.
Right. And speaking of that, let's look at a couple of things. What did you see in the 2 of them that you felt these were the guys who could go in there and deal with some of the issues?
Well, Sam Houston had a proven track record having been at the jail, and he's very big in developing professional leadership through the jail. He's part of a state and national organization for jail administrations. He is well on the way having us nationally accredited for a jail, which opens up opportunities for grant funding and additional training, which again brings more professionalism to the corrections system, and because we have some of the hardest working corrections officers anywhere. We are by far the largest jail in the state, and so I applaud him for that. And with Pat, I've known him for, like I said, most of my career. We've worked together in different capacities, and he's an extremely intelligent person, and I felt like he would be a good balance, because he does have great leadership skills, and thought he had a lot to offer, and it took some arm twisting to pull him away from the school system and get him over here with us.
All right. Well, let's look at some of the issues when you talk about making sure you've got people in place that you can talk about and trust and have them have your back. A couple of issues. Just recently you had the latest death this month, in fact, of one of the inmates dying.
Yep.
And so 3 total for this month. Is that something that happens in larger facilities, or what do you think is going on when you have that many in 1 month?
Well, we had, the most recent was yesterday, or I'm sorry, 2 days ago. And then, over the past month, had 2 more. And, I'll start with saying people who find themselves frequently incarcerated typically don't live really healthy lifestyles. And of those 3, none were due to assault or any kind of mistreatment. We 2 that we know are medical related, but we can't say that affirmatively until we get a toxicology back for the autopsy. One, not this most recent, but the one before, feel like there's probably some illegal drugs involved, and because inmates, no matter how hard we try to keep contraband out of the jail, they find ways to get it in and consume it, and sometimes they don't even know what they're consuming.
Yeah, we find that's happening to everybody now these days, where they have no clue what's in what they're using. So when you look at that, you think some of this has to do with the size of the facility and the amount of people you have, because that's been always one of the issues with the Metro Jail, being overcrowded because you just don't have enough space for everybody.
Well, that certainly can play into it. Anytime you have a greater number of people in a space, it's a matter of odds, and so you don't know what people's medical conditions are, before they're incarcerated, and sometimes they're not truthful. More often than not, they're not truthful about it when they're processed in. One in particular, and I don't want to name any names, but he knew he had medical issues and he refused his medications, and you can't force that upon him, and it's very unfortunate. And I'll say, I know it's odd that we have 3 in such a short period of time, but we had 3 all of last year. We've only had 18 since 2010, and so of the 15 remaining, they were all either natural or suicides.
Why does it take so long to get the autopsy reports back, toxicology?
Because, the state is just backed up, and so
Montgomery?
Yes.
Okay.
So Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences, and we're at their mercy. You can't get a complete autopsy report until the toxicology is received.
Okay. So, also talking about the jail, you had to deal with the federal lawsuit in reference to sexual harassment. Is that something that you're expecting some new changes with the new administrator in place?
Well, on that front, because that was as my first week in office, I get served with United States of America versus Paul Burch, so that'll kind of wake your eyes.
Welcome to the office, right?
Yeah. So, I think we've stood our ground and come up with a decent settlement on that, and a lot of the things that DOJ wanted, I refused to do, and so we came to a mutual agreement, and it hadn't been signed off on the judge yet, but I feel like it will. But a lot of the things they were asking, it was as if they were just pulling things out of the book, because we were already doing, and had implemented it long before this lawsuit, came about. And the bottom line is you can't physically control the behavior of an inmate, and so that'd be another DOJ lawsuit.
Because you can't pull the women away from a job, which prevents them from earning rank and position, I guess.
Right. Well, that and just you can't, if an inmate's behaving badly, you can't just go in there and be physical with them.
Right.
And all you can do is address the issue, and we've done a lot better about training, especially during hiring new COs, that there's a strong chance you're going to be exposed to this. And we have real strict disciplinary procedures in place for the inmates who do it. We had that in place before this lawsuit took place, and so we were well on the way of completing everything that they've asked. Some of the things were just not. They want us to put placards in different areas, like we can't put those kind of things in where inmates have access to it, because they're going to find another use for it. So some of the things were unreasonable, but we've met maybe through some negotiation different things that they've asked for, and I think we'll be fine on that.
In your previous position as captain, were you aware of all the Metro Jail issues that were going to be a part of this job?
Just what I heard about it.
Okay.
Nothing. I wasn't intimately involved in it, and
right.
So it's been an eye-opening experience.
We'll have to call Sheriff Sam on that one to make sure that next time.
Because again, that's your biggest liability is that jail.
It sounds like it is. What about in relationship to that, as we look at the numbers, do you see any relief coming? I understand that you even house prisoners or inmates from other counties in need.
We do, and because sometimes, such when Dallas County had, their tornadoes, and, those were dispersed throughout the surrounding areas, and us being the largest jail, we took on several of those, and, but we're over capacity. I don't see any immediate relief. The state has been a lot better about picking up the state inmates a little faster. That was an issue for a very long time. Mm-hmm. You have somebody who's been sentenced, and they may still be sitting in jail 6 months waiting to go upstate, and they've been a lot better about that.
Some sheriffs have been creative, like the sheriff in Maricopa County. Can you do things like that, or within certain requirements where you do temporary tent facilities or something?
I mean, I think you could, but, looking at it from a, manpower shortage right now, the more facilities you put them in, whether it's a tent or whatever, you've got to have the manpower to supervise those individuals.
Yeah, that's another issue too when you look at your numbers.
Right. And then something like that is not necessarily as secure, so you increase the probability of contraband getting in. So you just have to kind of weigh that has, I guess, good optics from some people and bad optics from others, but again, bottom line is, we wouldn't have the manpower to be able to set up something like that.
We're going to take a break on that point. When we come back, we're going to talk more about some of the challenges as well as some of the new things that you put in place that you're already seeing success in that.
All right.
Our conversations with Mobile County Sheriff Paul Burch. We'll have more of that in just a moment. Welcome back. Our conversations this morning here on Perspectives with Mobile County Sheriff Paul Burch, and we were talking about some of the challenges of the Mobile County Metro Jail. When you look at what would be the next thing that really throws a major challenge to you when you think other than the law enforcement role?
Well, I've been very vocal about being proactive against violent crime, and that kind of goes hand in hand with my jail population. I want to get the violent criminals off the street, but we have to have somewhere to put them. And but I will not let up on that. I think some of the initiatives we've had in place has made a significant impact on the amount of fentanyl we've been seeing.
That task force, that's been on top of that, right?
It has, and the DA's office and some of the district judges have all, I guess, come to a real understanding of the dangers of fentanyl. And when we get someone who's dealing it, we ask for a significantly high bond because of what, the risk that they've been, and so far we've been successful at that. Everyone's entitled to bond, but when they're a danger to the community, it's reasonable to ask for a higher bond to keep them in jail until they face the music.
And I understand that the district attorney, he is also pro Anaya's law, so he and you have been working on using that in cases you
absolutely. We've already have a few cases that individuals have been charged with murder for giving someone fentanyl and them dying as a result. And that some they've not been to trial yet, and I feel like they'll be successful. And that will be a practice that we continue to do. And when you deliberately distribute a poison that has the risk of causing someone's death, you should face the same music as if you pull a trigger and shoot somebody.
That's right. Now, we are still dealing, of course, with our location, the crossroads of two major interstates. Are we seeing that same kind of issue with the fentanyl coming through here as well?
We are, and I have a very proactive, very successful interdiction team, and we're in negotiations of partnering up with our adjoining counties again. We used to all work together on the interstate many years ago, so it becomes a sharing of seized assets kind of thing, so you have to work out those kind of details. But we will all be working together again soon. But the Mobile County Sheriff's Office interdiction team has been very successful. Not only do they seize drugs and money, just last week they stopped an individual in a vehicle that was wanted for murder out of Florida. So we encounter those things too.
And I know you had a big one where you confiscated cash and the person was still trying to figure out how to get that money, but you knew what the cash was for.
Right. There's things that we're able to get from various databases to know what this person's history is, and you didn't just go hit the lottery and get $360,000 and
and have the cash in your car.
Right.
Yeah.
We can usually see how many border crossings someone's been involved in, and just different we have very, very robust intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Now, the task force also had 3 major arrests for child pornography, sexual abuse here recently, and one of the 3 people that you brought in.
Yeah, we work hand in hand with the DA's office. Keith Blackwood does an outstanding job, him and his staff. And what we've begun to do is when the indictments come out on serious crimes such as that, they may go execute some of those arrests, and depending on how many indictments come out, out of a particular grand jury, we'll take some of them and go make arrests as well. And that really expedites the process. And rather than just indictments coming out and they go sit in, a file somewhere and wait to be served.
So that speed of the task force makes a major difference in how you're able to quickly reel these people in.
Right, get them into custody, which gets the process going, which puts, brings them to justice a lot sooner.
Now, one of the things that you also decided to tackle was the violent crime in Pritchard, to work with, I know, the mayor and hopefully the police chief there as well. But what were your thoughts on that when you put that into motion?
I received many complaints, from citizens in Pritchard, and again, I know they're a struggling agency, and but my perspective is they're all citizens of Mobile County.
Right.
And so I felt compelled to do something to give them some relief from the violent crime. I had grandmothers and mothers, said they couldn't let their children play out in the front yard, but between the young people riding up and down the street shooting, and so I felt compelled to do something about it. So we were very successful for the first couple of months, and got a lot of illegal guns off the street, a lot of people with violent felony warrants. And I think we've made a difference, and stay tuned for Chapter 2.
Okay. And
becoming sooner than later.
Having a presence makes a difference in places.
It does. I mean, everywhere, because I would go out there with them occasionally and go to some of the convenience stores where they might have somebody stopped, and the amount of appreciation was overwhelming, and thanking us for being there, thanking us for slowing down some of the shootings, and their shootings have decreased, because we worked their crime scenes, so they've been out a lot less frequently than they were in the past. So, which tells me what we're doing is working.
All right, so we look forward to part 2 on that one. In looking at, I guess, the presence of the force, and when you're there to they see that you are part of this. And I know that you were able to back off of some of Sims now, since they have a police force in place. So I guess that helps with you having a little more available manpower.
It does, and we shifted some of that manpower to the proactive units, and and it's just like I said, it was kind of a trial run to see experiment, but it's been very successful. And aside from the phone calls, what we did too is, it was a data-driven operation. We pulled data to look at where all the violent crimes were in the areas outside of Mobile's jurisdiction, and they certainly had the greater number of shootings and shooting into houses and cars, and so that's why, coupled with our phone calls, that we chose Pritchard to begin that operation. Once we feel like we have a handle on that, we'll look and see what the next area is we need to go to, and just continue on until we get a handle on violent crime.
Here's one I wanted to ask you about. I've got about a minute and a half, roughly. What happened with that deputy who was on staff and he was caught in the forging and other things of putting inaccurate time? How does that happen to where somebody can do that within your system?
Well, we've changed things where you can't do that. And I guess you could figure out a way around it, but it's going to be much more difficult. But the best we can figure how that happened is when previously overtime slips could go to any supervisor to be signed. And so once you figure that out, you take a few to this person, a few to that person, and let's just say you're going to 3 different supervisors. None of them know that you've signed the other one.
Right.
And so
Somebody
we know
who's
some of
studying
that.
how to beat the system.
Right. And so that is some of the things that went on. And because I signed some of those, not knowing that other people had signed other overtime slips. And
we only have a couple of seconds. We never have enough time, but thank you so much for sharing today. And of course, hopefully that gives the folks in the county an idea of things that are being done to make a difference in the community.
All right. I'll say one more time, I'm here for the community, and feel free to call us anytime we need us.
Right, Mobile County Sheriff Paul Burch. And of course, for more information, you can go to the website, mobileso.com. You can also go to their crime tips page, but they'd love for you to go there and send the Sheriff's Office anonymous information to help solve a crime. And then, of course, under the staff tab there, you can also contact the Sheriff's Secretary for phone and email listed there for more contact. All right, well, we thank you for joining us here on Perspectives. And remember, you can find all of our episodes of previous programs at fox10tv.com, the Fox 10 app, or our YouTube page. I'm Eric Reynolds. Until next time, you have a great week ahead.
Appreciate it.